Could I just ask a supplementary to that, to Councillor Casey's question? It is important to know what the economic benefits are, if they exist. Have we made any effort, or is there any evidence from central government to quantify what those economic benefits might be?
Not directly for the Auckland region, but we have information here on the royalties and taxes and things collected overall. So overall, the oil industry contributes $4 billion to our gross domestic product each year, and that's out of $150 billion total.
Okay, but that essentially goes to central government by way of royalties.
And taxes and resource levies.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I had two other questions, but
okay, Councillor Casey.
I'm still not. I don't know what benefits there are to Auckland, so I think that's one that I'd like to put on the table, so the scales are balanced against the proposal that we supported. My second question was, Dave, you asked me to change the amendment because you said it's only exploration that's involved here. Are you sticking with that? Because I heard you saying drilling just 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
Sorry, there's exploratory drilling, and then there's drilling for the purposes of oil production, and through each of the stages, prospecting, exploration and production, you need a permit, and for the exploration and production, you also need a marine consent through the EPA
so
or
I'll go
RMA.
back to the original version of the amendment, thanks. My last question relates to this code of conduct, which is the Seismic Survey Code of Conduct, and I've been reading what Doc has to say about it, and I'd like to just quote something that Doc says and ask for your opinion of it. It is a voluntary code of conduct, and Doc says, so these are like
It's now mandatory.
Seismic Survey Code of Conduct 101, and it's frequently asked questions, and one of the frequently asked questions is, and one that every one of us would be asking is, how do we know they'll work and not negatively impact on migratory mammals? How do we know they'll work, that the Code of Conduct will work? And the answer from Doc is this: any activity that introduces noise into the marine environment, industry, marine, tourism, recreation, etc., has the potential to affect marine mammals. The code is designed to minimise the risk to marine mammals of injury and significant behavioural responses, but cannot guarantee that residual effects will not occur. And it's that last sentence. So the code of conduct is there, that's all fine, but there's no guarantees that it will be followed, and even if it is followed, that it won't have risk to the 55 or 63 remaining Maui dolphin.
Is that a question?
Yep.
Could you begin it with a question word so I understand what the question to the officials are?
It was a response to that frequently. That doesn't give me any comfort. So does it give you comfort?
I think the amount of work that's gone on with the Code of Conduct is quite significant, and they're actually refining it right now. They're going through a review process. They're actually still. You're probably still going to have that kind of a
question mark
reservation. Yes.
Question mark. Always.
Yeah, I think with a number of things, there's always going to be some doubt.
Question marks. Yeah, that's great. Great answer. Thank you.
Okay, we have the next question is from Councillor Walker.
Sure. I've got 2 or 3 questions. The first question just goes to risk, and in particular, what happens if there is a significant oil spill. And we've seen the information from Greenpeace. Would a spill of that nature effectively eliminate the Maui dolphin? Conceivably eliminate the snapper fishery on the west coast? What's the impact?
So I'd just probably firstly note that we're talking here about exploratory permits as opposed to mining permits, so that's at a scale which is not the full production. It's the first thing So the next point I'd make is that in attachment B there is some outline of some of the strategies that are in place by Maritime New Zealand in terms of responding to an oil spill, and in terms of capability to actually respond as well. And Paul, did you want to add any other aspect?
Can I please add that it's very hard to sort of quantify what the impact would be without an event occurring, but some points to note might be that, the RENA has made, there was initial high impact on the species and habitat of that area, but there's actually been quite a bit of wildlife and fisheries rebuild around the area that's been closed to fishing over that time. We've also, there's been presentations recently on the Horizons deep water cleanup and the impact that had. And they said that overall the impact was not as severe over the long term as they were expecting it to be. But that's not to say that there isn't an impact. It's very hard to quantify.
Can I make one other observation just in relation to the snapper fishery, or a fishery that is a more abundant fishery? There is a certain level of resilience there, and it's not in the same sort of league as a marine mammal in terms of impacts. So I think you would be probably more concerned about species that are on sort of obviously that endangered sort of status rather than something.
Just a further question, is the Kaipara fishery healthy?
So there's been improvement in the fishery over the last 10 years. The estimates that were previously available suggested that the stock was at a level of some 8% of its virgin biomass. That has now increased. It's now approaching 20% of its virgin biomass. And so the Snapper 8 West Coast North Island stock is actually improving. So in that respect, as a separate sort of discussion point, I think that fishery is improving.
So just going back to my question, my question really was whether a spill of the order that Greenpeace demonstrated to us would eliminate the Maui dolphin. That was my question.
I mean, I can't really provide an answer to that. I mean, it's pretty hard to...
Okay, and the other question I've got just goes to the matters that we're signatory to, the Paris Pledge for Action, the Compact of Mayors, and obviously we're a member of C40. We're also obviously part of a government that signed the Paris Accord. And we know that the world is on a tipping point, that we could have runaway emissions. Now, given our council's responsibility, is it not better to actually keep the oil in the ground if it's not necessary? And and I know you haven't...
Could I just, look, sorry, if I can interrupt at this stage, Councillor. I know what you're getting at, but it's more debating material than it is a question, and I don't think it's, we're asking technical questions to our officials today, rather than questions that they might not be expected to be able to answer. And if I could just say that to all councillors around the table, when we have the question time, can we just focus on the specific questions? I think, to be fair, what you're saying is it's a debating point, and it may be a very fair debating point, but it's more that, and I don't think we can effectively expect our officials to comment on debating points. They need to be tight, technical questions. So if I can come to Councillor Collins. Councillor Collins, you have a question. Just keeping in mind that I do want not debating points, but technical questions.
Cool, thanks,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Two questions from me. This is a very new area for me, so I've been using the report to get some understanding around it. And I'm interested in the point you made around drilling. And with the exploratory drilling and getting permits with that, do you know of any examples where that has been where exploratory drilling has been detrimental to the environment?
Sorry, if I can have order, the question is directed to the officials, not to the gallery.
Not in New Zealand, no.
Cool, and thank you. And my second question, Mr. Mayor, is under point 24, it says that no time was available for council to seek iwi or hapu views. Why was that the case?
So we have sought iwi and hapu views for the last 3 years and very much got a clear view as to kind of their ideas. The council submission is consistent with the views that we've got from mana whenua before. The opportunity is available for mana whenua to respond directly to New Zealand Petroleum and Minerals, so they've done that in the past. And on this occasion, because of the local body elections, we were originally going to look at making a submission through the Chief Executive this year. That was one of the things we flagged with the Regional Strategy and Policy Committee last year. And because we managed to get this paper to this governing body, we've managed to actually only do that in the last matter of weeks, a week basically. So we've had very little time. And the other thing is the submission period is only 1 month.
And so just finally, supplementary to that, Mr. Mayor, is, so you would say under point 25 that the views of Māori or iwi and hapu would be consistent with the objection that was noted by ngā maunga whakahi o Kaipara?
So I think we would argue that we've given the opportunity to mana whenua to put their case, and they are perfectly entitled to put their case directly to central government. Our observation is more that we have provided that opportunity in the previous years. We have, as we do with local boards, we have some local boards that have an opposition in principle position. Other local boards are more sort of saying, yes, we kind of agree with the general concerns that are raised by the council submission. So we do get a range of different responses from mana whenua to answer your question.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mike Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This relates again to the question of environmental protection versus resource exploitation we briefly discussed at our last meeting. My question is, in regard to Maui dolphin, the council recommends excluding the Maui dolphin reserve from, or the sanctuary from the area to be exploited. But the problem, and that on the face of it is reassuring, given the officers themselves say the subspecies is on the verge of extinction and full prudence is needed over the long period required for the population to rebuild. The problem I have, and you may be able to help me here.
Councillor, can I just remind you, Councillor, order please. Can I just remind you of the ruling that I made before? Could you please make the question specific? There will be a time for debate, but at this stage I just want specific technical questions so we can get through this, because otherwise we'll be taking a very long time.
Well, you're actually holding me up.
Well, if I if I didn't have to intervene, I wouldn't be holding you up. Could you please get to the question?
Please, can I ask the question?
I'm asking you to do, Councillor.
The question is, in regard to the Maui Dolphin Sanctuary, the Maui Dolphins are not completely aware of the limits of their sanctuary, and their range extends much further than the sanctuary, and escaping oil also would not respect the limits of a sanctuary. So it's an anthropocentric conception here.
Councillor, I'm still waiting for the question, please. Can you begin with a question word so I know what the question is?
Will tweaking or asking for the area to be exploited to avoid the sanctuary, will that really enable full prudence to protect the species which is on the verge of extinction? Will that enable full prudence or not?
So we've taken a progressive approach to this, in that 2 years ago we managed to get the decision made to have the tender area removed from the coastal marine area, in the marine sanctuary as well, in the Auckland area. And the overlap that we're talking about now relates to Waikato and Taranaki. The bulk of the Maui dolphin population is obviously in the Auckland CMA. And then, so the question is then, will the decision be taken by the government to further reduce the risk associated with a tender process in that southern area, and that's really for the, I think, central government to make the determination. I think the risk here is probably sufficiently managed at this point in terms of us recommending that that is a point that needs to be considered by central government.
Further questions, Councillor Lee? Or
No, thank you.
okay, Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One question. It's to do with the actual report itself. If I can just bring attention to clause 20 about no time to consult the local boards, and picking up on Councillor Collins' clause 24 there, no time to consult fully with iwi and hapu, because really other than that one local board, I'm still very unclear about the other local boards' positions on this, and I have no idea, despite your answer to Councillor Collins, about the views of iwi. So my question word, why? Why have the authorisers of this report signed it off for consideration today without perhaps delaying to seek input from the local board and iwi?
So firstly, I'd note that 8 local boards had provided their views, and they're summarised in last year's paper, and they basically, as I said before, range from sort of opposition in principle to a more picking up on some of the areas of interest that have been discussed in the paper and the proposed council submission. As I said before, the decision taken last year was that given the overlap of the likely release of this consultation document with the local body elections, meant that it was not possible to actually go and consult with local boards who had yet to be formed formally, and secondly that we had envisaged that we were going to be doing this through the Chief Executive in terms of making a submission at that point.
Could I just ask a supplementary to that? We have had submissions in the past from local boards. Can you, for the sake of the new members of this council, do you have a rough breakdown of what the attitudes of the 21 local boards are, how they break down? You might not have that information, but if you have it, would be helpful to some of us.
So the boards that provided a submission last year included Waitakere Ranges, Waiheke Island, Aoraki, Mangariautuhuhu, Pukitapapa, and Manurewa, and Mangakiki Tamaki and Franklin. Mm-hmm. So that was the boards involved. Waitakere basically formally opposed the block offer process,